Giving away all the juicy reveal. Hi, everyone. Testing the speakers. Can you all hear us online?
Yes, we
Yes.
I am able to hear you.
All right, so testing again.
We can hear you again.
Okay, thank you. So if everybody online can mute their speakers, we will get started momentarily. Hey, Dwight, would you mind muting yourself?
I'm trying to figure out how to do that. Okay.
Sure thing. There we go. Great. So, I think it might be the red icon beside the PowerPoint there, just to the right of that. So on the bottom, just, yeah, there, no, to the right, there, should be the agenda there. Okay, so it looks like that. I think you can press the little arrow. So on the orange box, there's a little arrow, that one, it'll collapse that. And then I think online they're seeing what we see on the screen now.
Okay.
So would you mind hitting the X on the left-hand side next to all tools to collapse the left-hand toolbar down a little bit and to the right? So on the left-hand side, there, right there, yeah. Okay, now we can see it better. All right, do you want me to kick it off?
Let's see. Well, I'll go ahead and start.
Okay.
All right, so I'm Mike Farrell, the Bicycle Pedestrian Coordinator here at the Council of Governments, and we are having our second in-person meeting of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Subcommittee, since COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So, every time there's a new wrinkle, but at any rate, I guess that the next thing to do. So, thanks to all of you who were able to make it in person. Perhaps we should, publicize it more aggressively that it is, that there is an in-person option, but at any rate. Let's see, I'm going to stop sharing the agenda for just a minute and share the minutes, since that's the next item on the agenda.
Were we gonna go around and do introductions?
Oh, we should do introductions.
Okay.
Yeah, this is true. I'm going to put that over to you.
Yes.
And you can lead the introductions.
Hi, everyone. Heidi Mitter, VDOT Nova District Multimodal Planning Manager and Chair for 2024. We'll do those in the room and then we'll go online and I'll call it by state, starting with Maryland. So I'll go to my left with Ryan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ryan Yowell, Senior Planner with WMATA.
Daniel Moore, the accounts team at Cidian.
Mike Farrell, already introduced.
Mike Glassman, also accounts at Cidian.
Ian Newman, transportation researcher with Cidian. Brian Leckie, bicycle pedestrian and park and ride coordinator, VDOT Nova District.
Mariam Sultan, multimodal planner at Baltimore Metropolitan Council.
So, research technician with the
University of North Carolina, Highland State Research Center.
Good afternoon, everyone. PhD student in Virginia.
Hello, Ralph Bueller, Professor at Urban Affairs and Planning at Virginia Tech.
Thank you, Ralph.
Very good.
All right, so on to the online folks. We'll start with Maryland. State and then local jurisdictions.
Shane Server, bike ped planner with Maryland State Highway.
Any other Maryland statewide staff?
Yeah, test. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Hi, Meg Young, Deputy Director of Active Transportation, Maryland Department of Transportation.
Thank you. All right, local jurisdictions, go for it.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Brian Barnett Woods with the City of Rockville.
Hello, this is Kevin Obike with the Montgomery County Department of Transportation.
Good afternoon. This is Tiffany Jennings with the Prince George's County Department of Public Works and Transportation, Bicycle and Pedestrian Program Manager.
This is Dave Only with the Frederick County Division of Public Works.
Hi, this is Ann Welch. I'm with the District Department of Transportation in our Active Transportation branch.
I am. Any other Maryland folks? If not, let's move on to DC. Any other DC affiliated staff and WMATA?
Oops, sorry, I introduced myself in the wrong section. I apologize.
That's okay. You were ahead of your time. Trend setting.
Good afternoon, Antonio Rossi, WMATA, Bike Ped Project Manager.
All right, any others DC related? If not, we'll go to Virginia. Any state staff from Virginia?
Hi, I'm Dwight Jenkins. I'm with Virginia's DMV Highway Safety Office, Ped Bike Coordinator. Thank you.
Thanks, Dwight. Local jurisdictions from Virginia.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Bryce Barrett with Prince William County Department of Transportation. I'm also joined with George Phillips.
Hey, guys.
Hello, this is Chloe Ritter with the City of Fairfax.
And this is Laura Ghosh with Loudoun County Department of Transportation and Capital Infrastructure. Nice to see everyone.
Hi, Laura.
And Nicole Winans from Fairfax County, Active Transportation Section.
And my name is Brian Shelton, Active Transportation Planner in Arlington.
Yeah.
Linnea Sherman, and I'm joined by Jill Caneth from the Northern Virginia Regional Commission.
Hey, this is Griffin Frank. I'm with the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority.
Anybody else? Okay, hearing none. Maybe Mike can periodically check the chat to see if there's anybody putting comments or questions in the chat. But for now, since we have the minutes up from last time, we can just go through that and check those on and off. So we have the meeting minutes. Looks like Tim Canan is also on from COG. So meeting minutes from July, which was a virtual meeting. And Andy Meese from COG TPB. And then we also have Janie Nam, who joined us in the room from COG TPB staff. Anybody have any comments so far on the minutes?
I just have a comment on if we can go back to the participants. This is Brian Shelton. I'm not an active transportation manager, but an active transportation planner.
Thank you, Brian. Well, it looks like I have to follow back up with Anne on a presentation. These are good reminders. Okay, any comments or edits? Hearing none, except for Brian's edit, I guess we can move to approve the minutes pending that edit from Brian. All right, I move to approve the July meeting minutes. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, sounds like they're approved. Janie, feel free to have a sandwich and salad. You guys are missing some great sandwiches, and very healthy salad. I don't know if Mike handmade them all, but, they have a really good BLT. And then we also have Yu Gao from COG TPB staff. Feel free to get some food.
Thank you.
Okay, so looks like the next item on the agenda is jurisdictional updates. So, Mike, can we go ahead and kick those off?
Sure, let's do that.
Okay.
We usually go by state.
Mhm.
So, let's see. So I could, shall you do it or shall I?
Well, I was gonna do the same way we did introductions around the room first, unless somebody has a different opinion. So I think that might be orderly. So, if Ryan wants to kick us off, we can start with Metro.
Sure. So WMATA today released updated ped sheds and bike sheds. I'll be presenting more on this meeting. That's my only update for now. I know that Antonio is also on the call. And Antonio, I'm not sure if you have other updates for WMATA.
No updates at this time. Thanks.
Obsidian, I'm gonna assume you guys don't have updates from your group. We'll hear more from you guys later. So next up is Brian Leckie with VDOT Northern Virginia District.
So I just want to touch on a couple of improvements to our bike ped infrastructure in Northern Virginia, starting with our VDOT repaving program. So in FY24, as part of VDOT repaving, we'll be installing or have already installed 9.4 lane miles of bike lanes across Northern Virginia. Since 2009, the total number of bike lanes and shared lanes that have been striped across Northern Virginia as part of the repaving program is approaching 330 miles, and more to come in the future. We also have several segments of shared use path in design or construction right now, primarily in Fairfax County. There are a couple of projects on Route 29 near Centerville. We have the Route 28 shared use path south of Route 29 that have already been constructed.
By Fairfax.
Okay. And a segment of the 66 parallel trail in the Fair Oaks area around Monument Drive will be constructed in a couple of years. So as all these projects continue to get built over the next several years, eventually people will have the ability to travel actively from Cub Run in the west over to the Beltway in the east. And from there, you can hop over to the W&OD. You can also get from on Route 28 from the Prince William County line up Route 28 to EC Lawrence Park, or you can from Centerville you can go along Route 29 to the Fairfax County Parkway Trail and up with Reston, and then over to Tyson's via the new shared use pass, which is built on Route 7. So we continue to build up significant regional connectivity for multimodal travel, and eventually we'll have these will all be major additions to the National Capital Trail Network as well.
Thank you.
That's all I had. Yeah.
Thanks, Brian. Moving on to Marion from the Baltimore Metropolitan Council.
I did not actually bring any updates today.
That's okay. That's okay. But this is Miriam's first meeting with us. So if anybody has any questions for the Baltimore area, she is here. Janie, are you? Okay.
I'll have it at the end of the meeting.
Great. All right. Your whole team here, do you guys have any jurisdictional updates?
I don't think so. Krista will give the big
Okay.
update later. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right, well, the room keeps it pretty simple here. So we'll go on to the virtual participants. This time we'll start with DC for your jurisdictional updates.
Yeah, so this is again Ann Welch at DDOT. Just a couple quick updates. We are wrapping up our existing conditions report. That is part of our upcoming district-wide strategic bike plan. So I'll be looking forward to sharing that with the group once we have that published and shared. So we're looking forward to as we wrap up this existing conditions portion, we'll be looking forward to kicking off the strategic plan soon. So excited to share that with you as we start going through it. And then another news that we have coming soon, hopefully I can share at another upcoming meeting. We are about to publish our bicycle counts dashboard. So we're working on getting all the data kind of finalized, making sure everything's correct. And then we'll have all of our manual counts online, as well as we already have our automatic counts online. So this will be that second piece of the puzzle that we can share with the community and all of our neighbors. So soon we'll have both of those.
And I'm wondering, once you guys have the dashboard up and running, can people access that?
I'm sorry, it's kind of hard to hear. Did you ask once we have it up and running, can people access it?
Yeah, where?
Oh, where can people access it? We'll have it on our bike lanes. We'll have it linked on our new bike lanes website, and I can drop that in the chat.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other DC related agencies? Okay, we'll go to Virginia, starting with Virginia state agencies and then local jurisdictions.
Hey, this is Dwight again from Virginia DMV. I'm really happy that to report yesterday we launched a new pedestrian safety campaign called You're Not a Duck. Some of you had participated in questionnaires in order to get us to the final product. We're excited. We hope that we get a lot of play out of this particular campaign. It's going to run for an entire month into Pedestrian Safety Month of October as well. And we're also doing a big promotion of the campaign in Virginia Beach at a function coming up at the end of September. So we're very excited about that. Getting with our media contractor who worked very hard on it, 2 Tango. So there's 30-second and 15-second slots, both radio and television, along with placards that will be distributed on transit stations and that sort of thing. So we're excited. And that's pretty much it for right now, other than working on strategies, which involve many of our Northern Virginia partners, Fairfax County, Alexandria County, and Prince William County, to be specific. And so those are moving forward, and we hope that we'll see a significant reduction in pedestrian crashes. Fingers crossed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. It's funny, as Brian and I were leaving the VDOT office today to come here, I think it was a Fairfax Connector bus drove in front of us with one of your new ads with the ducks saying people stop for ducks, but not pedestrians or something, whatever the tagline was. And I was very pleased to see that. So it's already out and running.
Yay. Don't outwaddle those ducks. Thanks.
Any other, I guess VDOT, I think, was the only other VDOT or Virginia State agency. So we'll go to the counties, then cities in Virginia.
I can give an update for Fairfax County. As many of you know, we're in the outreach phase for the Active Fairfax Transportation Plan update, which is working on a update and streamline of our trails network plan, as well as active transportation in general network and best practices, updated policy and whatnot. So it's a pretty big overhaul. We're currently in the public outreach phase. We started in August and it's going through December. So we've had a lot of public engagement meetings over the past couple of weeks, 12 total. We're wrapping up this week, and there are additional virtual meetings coming up in October and November. So if you're interested, we have an interactive map of the network on our website, as well as a survey. So if you could help spread the word, if you have contacts to send this plan to, we'd love to hear also from folks outside of Fairfax that may travel to Fairfax for work or just to visit. So we'll place the link to the website in the chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicole. Would you like to give a short presentation to this group in one of our upcoming meetings?
I can. When is the next meeting?
November and then January.
Yes, that would work well time-wise. I would be happy to do that.
Great. Yes, it is a big part of our network in the region. So we will put you down for a follow-up email to circle back with.
November 19th.
Okay, yes, November 19th specifically. Great. And then you also have some new staff online with you today, it looks like.
I do. So I'm being joined today by Sandy Clanfer, who joined us in August, and he's working particularly on plan review, but also other technical support. And he's going to be the new liaison for some regional groups, especially the Capital Trails Network, Potomac Heritage National Scenic Trail. And he's also working on policy updates on our transportation element in the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Welcome, Sandy.
Yeah, let's see who else is, if Andrew is here. So we also have Andrew Sheldon joining us. He is coming over from the school system. So he was the Safe Routes to School coordinator for the Fairfax County Public Schools. And he just recently started with us, and his focus is on public engagement and event planning. So there's a lot more we can do. We're a big jurisdiction. We have not had the staff or resources in the past to do a lot. And a lot of you are great examples for us to follow, and we will do some research and get in touch with you to learn more about your engagement efforts and targeted educational outreach in order to improve our program.
Good idea. Thank you. All right. Bryce with Prince William County, would you like to go next?
Sure. We have a couple initiatives that we're still at the early phases on. First is we have kicked off some of our work on our comprehensive safety action plan, which is going to have a strong bicycle and pedestrian component associated with it. We've kind of started off by doing a gap analysis of the county to kind of assess where our network is and where the major gaps are. And then we're going to move forward and apply a layer with our crash data analysis to kind of help target specific intersections that could use some safety improvements, some better connectivity improvements, that sort of thing. So still in the early phases, we anticipate to have more concrete information about that update, probably early next year. But I'll continue to provide updates as we kind of move along in that process. We're also partnering with our Parks and Rec department to kick off a Trails Master Plan. The strong focus of that master plan would be on the recreational trails component in Prince William County, but we're going to be working really closely with Parks and Rec to understand how that connects into our network, which also makes that gap analysis that we're doing for the comprehensive safety action plan really timely, because it makes sure that we have the most up-to-date on-road network that we can to kind of marry those two efforts together. And then aside from that, our Parks Department is also leading FLAP grant, which is looking at Potomac Heritage National Scenic Trail connections, looking at 3 of the final gaps in Prince William County. So that's a big push for our trail advocates in the county. We're hoping to see completion of that trail through Prince William County in the next 5 to 10 years. So I think that's basically it. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to hop off just after this. We are doing well, I guess fortunately, the board is actually endorsing a proclamation for Car Free Day, so I wanted to go and support that. But if you have any questions for Prince William County, just let me know, and George will be on the call for the rest of the meeting, I believe.
Thank you so much, Bryce. Sounds like a presentation next year on the safety action plan could be good.
Sounds good.
Thanks. All right, so I think Laura for Loudon put her update in the chat. I'm not sure if you are able to come on the speaker, but look like you're making a presentation soon.
Yeah, so tonight, no, not tonight, tomorrow night, we are going to be presenting a proposed bicycle and pedestrian wayfinding program to our Transportation and Land Use Committee, seeking endorsement for the prioritization methodologies, the sign family, and 2 pilot routes in Loudoun County. And from there, We plan to present it to our Finance and Government Operations Economic Development Committee in October, so we can start making recommendations for funding sources for the program. And after that, we'll present the recommendations to the board. Hopefully October, it's going to be at a later meeting if all goes well. So we also have been working on our Safe Streets initiative. And this isn't my project, because a colleague is running it, but they, on September 2nd, 2024, went to the Loudoun County Kids Fest and had a pop-up table there where they educated the public about the Safe Streets Loudoun initiative and gathered feedback for county roadway safety concerns. So that was pretty exciting. And I will paste a link to that effort in our chat. There is a survey that you could go take, and we also have a map on that link to identify roadway safety concerns in Loudoun. So please feel free to share and comment.
That's great. Thank you.
That's it for me. Yeah.
Thanks so much. How about Arlington and then City of Fairfax?
Sure. Hello, everybody. This is Brian Shelton again. I have a couple of updates from the county. I know it was leaked at the last meeting, but now I can officially say that we will be kicking off our transportation planning process. We've selected a consultant. We're working with them presently to gear up for our first public engagement event. It's going to be Wednesday, October 16th from 3 to 7. It's an open house at the Arlington Central Library. We're really looking forward to this. Our existing master transportation plan was written in 2007, and we're finding that it really misses the mark on really important topics such as equity, safety, and given our constrained right-of-way, we do see a lot of conflicts between the modes that we're trying to all trying to work towards improving conditions for. We believe right now that it's going to be an 18-month public engagement process, with a couple of months after that to clean up the final plan for board approval sometime in 2025 or sometime in 2026. Addition to that, our Arlington County Commuter Services Program will be releasing their new strategic plan. The plan expands the scope of their services to beyond the commuter now and includes all people who are making trips all throughout the day. So whether you're shopping, whether you're going to the doctor's office, dentist office, or visiting friends, the program will now be catering some of its services and providing information for all of our users within the county, which is a big scope change for that program. And the third update we have, very shortly we'll be releasing our new Bicycle Comfort Index. We've been working with the City of San Francisco on our updated methodology. Previously, we used the methodology developed by Peter Firth to identify traffic stress on some of our bike routes. We expanded it to include 14 other factors and indicators for comfort, and we'll have a map shortly. I'm looking at a print draft copy right now, so it's really exciting to have in hand.
Okay.
And that is it.
Thank you, Brian. Very interesting. Chloe, Fairfax.
Oh, sorry, wrong camera. Here we go. So I don't have a lot of big updates. I know several people have talked about Safe Streets for All, and we are currently working on getting our safety action plans started. So hopefully we'll have more on that in January, February. But that's something that's coming up for us pretty soon. And then I think the only thing that's coming up fairly soon for us is an open house on the Chainbridge Road and Eaton Place intersection improvement projects. And as part of that intersection concept, there is an extension of the I-66 trail down to the Chainbridge Eaton signal. So kind of getting the next link on that spur from the I-66 trail. So I think those are the updates I have today. Thanks.
Thank you, Chloe. All right, other regional Northern Virginia groups or others from Virginia?
Hey, this is Griffin. Just wanted to share, we kicked off our third season of Innovation Lunch and Learns, which are just quick 45-minute webinars with local and national experts on transportation technology related initiatives. This is something that's supported by our Transportation Technology Strategic Plan. And we had our first webinar the first week of September featuring Amy Posner, who is the sole dedicated EV planner in Alexandria, and she shared some really good insights on Alexandria's initiatives to basically cater to EV charging adoption for multifamily homes and single family homes, also Dash fleet. So that is something that is happening in November and December, the first Thursdays of both November and December. The topics for those next two are to be determined. We skipped out on October just because we have our very excited to share our signature event at NVTA is the Northern Virginia Transportation Roundtable. And that will be on October 9th. That's a Wednesday from 8:30 to 11 a.m. at our brand new office location located just off the Vienna or Orange Line, sorry, at Dunloring Station. And that theme of the event will be artificial intelligence and dynamic incentivization, the future of transportation. So I guess the appeal to Bike Ped is that we will be offering some information just on dynamic incentives for people traveling by active transportation as opposed to single occupancy vehicles, and have some more information on that. It's a mobile app, basically ARM3P, if you've heard of that acronym. It's a mobile app put together, co-sponsored with VDOT and NVTA and DRPT, that will incentivize folks to maybe not drive to places they don't necessarily need to, and offer incentives to either take transit or active transportation or carpool, things of that sort. So Laura, I see your message. Yes, I'll definitely drop a link to both the roundtable event. The registration is open now. It's free for government employees, and general admission is $25. So I will drop that link in the chat now.
Thank you,
Thank
Griffin.
you.
Great. All right. Any other Virginia folks? All right. Moving on to Maryland, MDOT.
Hi, this is Shane from SHA. Just one update from me, which is that the bicycle and pedestrian priority areas application is now available, and we're accepting those applications through the end of October. This is the program that I presented on last meeting. So if you have any questions or are considering applying, just send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat, and I'll put a link in the chat as well. And that is my only update. I'll pass it off to Meg now.
Thanks.
Thanks, Shane. I will share a whole list of updates since I was not at the last meeting. In our Office of Active Transportation, MDOT has been quite busy. So I'm going to drop a whole bunch of links in the chat. We updated our Complete Streets policy June 1st, and we've launched a new webpage for it, a lot of FAQs and some of our demonstration projects going on. Last week, we announced Bike Ped grants for fiscal year 25, $16 million worth of grants going to local jurisdictions. through the Transportation Alternatives Program, rec trails, and bikeways. We also announced on Friday that we're kicking off a new statewide transportation trails planning effort. We're still looking for some representatives from the DC metro area, so I'm going to put the email in the chat if you want to be part of the advisory committee. I was excited to hear, I think it was Bryce who had to leave, mentioned his trail planning effort. Theirs was focused on rec trails. Ours is mostly focused on transportation trails. We have a sidewalk data project underway that this group, and I understand Michael helped with setting some of our schema for collecting sidewalk data from across the state. We also just launched a webpage for that and have been training local jurisdictions, inputting their data to have sidewalks from across the state mapped. Our Walktober campaign is kicking off soon. Encouraging everyone to walk for Walk Maryland Day on October 2nd, but we also have Walk-in-Ours every Thursday of the month with some really great speakers highlighting some nationally known speakers, and then each time followed by a Maryland-specific project. And then also in my list is Shane's link to the BPPA applications. Oh, he already put that in there. But yeah, a whole lot of things going on here, but available for questions on any of these. I'll put my email in the chat as well.
Thank you, Meg. And if you want to chat with the Virginia State Trails Office, let me know, or if you haven't already been in contact with them, because they just completed a state trails plan and are doing some more products on various state trail planning efforts.
I would love that. I have not been in touch with them.
Okay, great.
We literally got NTP last week.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Other Maryland jurisdictions, counties.
Hello again, this is Tiffany Jennings with Prince George's County Department of Public Works and Transportation. A couple of quick updates. We actually look forward to installing 12 capital bike share stations in Prince George's County. We already have 27 in the county. Of course, capital bike share is a regional mode of transportation, providing access and connectivity through 8 different jurisdictions that own and operate capital bike share. So we have 27 stations in the county, and we'll be adding 12 new stations, hopefully by the end of the year. We just had a couple of site visits, and so things are looking really good. So our plan is to have those in the ground by the end of this calendar year. Also, and I don't know if I mentioned that there are over 700 stations throughout the region in 8 jurisdictions, but we do have 27 and adding 12 more. Okay. Also, this coming Saturday is the annual Ride for Natasha. And of course, for those who are knowledgeable about the Ride for Natasha and the purpose of it, of course, bringing greater exposure to the importance of bicycle safety. The mother of Natasha Pettigrew, who was tragically killed in a crash along 202 in front of Prince George's Community College. She has this ride every year, and it's this coming Saturday. The Bike and Pedestrian Program of DPW&T and hundreds of cyclists, Maryland Highway Safety Office, and a number of other entities come out to support the ride. And so push off is at 7 a.m. and I'm leaving from Jericho City Drive and Bright Seat Road in Prince George's County and riding out to Annapolis. And it's not just to bring greater exposure to road safety and bicycle safety. It's also to also honor persons who've passed away too soon due to crashes, fatal crashes. And this is the 13th year of the ride. Additionally, we'll be participating in the Walktober and Walktober for Pedestrian Safety Month, and also the Walk-in-Ours, promoting that and supporting that. So just wanted to mention that. And those are my updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. So we'll go on to anybody else from Maryland. With respect to time, let's try to keep these updates to 1 minute, and then we can put anything extra in the chat or circle back at the end. Anybody else from Maryland?
Hey, good afternoon. This is Brian from City of Rockville. We are currently putting together, or actually, they're actually right now constructing a road diet on Beale Avenue where we're going to be adding asphalt art. So they're restriping 4 lanes to 2, and we'll use that extra space for a buffered bike lane, the asphalt art, and parking and loading spaces.
Cool. Thank you. Others from Maryland? Okay. Hearing none, thank you everybody for those really good updates. I think we can move to the first presentation for today, which is on the National Capital Region Trail Monitoring and Analysis Program. We're going to hear from Krista Nordback, who's a Senior Research Associate with the UNC Highway Safety Research Center. Krista, and you have several colleagues in the room here to support you, so you can take it away.
Great. And should I share my slides, or do you want to share them there?
I do have them on my laptop here, but why don't you share them from your screen, I think.
Okay.
Easier.
Sounds good. Take me a moment here. Okay, can you see that? Are you able to see my slides?
Yeah.
Great.
Online.
Yeah,
Great.
we
Okay.
are. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. So thanks for having us here and letting us talk about this project. So this is funded by the National Park Service, and I'm very grateful to my co-PI, Sarah O'Brien. Between us, we have at least 20 years of experience on bicycle and pedestrian trail counting. And we are also grateful to have Sarah Belden there in person, who is our boots on the ground, helping us maintain the counting equipment. And our colleagues at Virginia Tech, and I'm so glad to hear Ralph Bueller and Vahid Bakashi are there in person. I'll be talking about some of their important work. And then also our colleagues at Portland State University, we have Tammy Lee and Bassem Ilazabi, who are here from Portland, Oregon online. So thank you. So I'll talk about the scope of our work, the importance of validation, some of the troubleshooting work that Sarah's been doing, the new counter installations we hope to do, Vahid's work on the big data and data fusion, and then if I have time, I'll we will definitely talk about the data dashboard, but if I have time, I'll show you around that. So our project is a 5-year project. Currently, we hope to get an extension on that for another 5 years. But currently, we're going through at least April of 2026. An important part of this is jurisdictional coordination. So many of you have seen our presentations before, and we're so grateful for your participation. There are 160 trail counters around the region, and most of those are not managed by National Park Service. So we are so grateful for the coordination of the other regional partners. Maintenance is an important thing. I'll talk about that soon, and validation of the equipment, making sure it works. Our public data dashboard and data sharing is an important element of this project. And then the analysis and reporting, you can see here, we have an infographic summarizing our work. And I've also put a link in the chat to our page, our web page, if you want more information. It has all the analysis and reporting we've done to date on that, linked at the bottom of that page. Vahid again is working on this analysis and big data fusion project, and we are hoping to install counters very soon. So I will now move to talk about the work Virginia Tech is doing. And thankfully you have some of the staff there you can talk to in person. They're working on the validation of the equipment. So it's really important. This is Mohammed Shazalal Tushar, who has been working on this for quite some time. And we're trying to make sure that these counters are counting accurately enough, plus or minus 20% error. If we see more than that, it's a problem. But if we do see within that, we can apply a correction factor to adjust for known biases. For example, if you have an infrared counter, it's looking for warm bodies. So you know if you have two people walking side by side, they might be counted as one person. So you know there's an inherent bias, and you can correct for that with a correction factor, which we developed through the validation procedure. If it's over 20% error, then we can do some troubleshooting, and I'll talk about that soon. So we have a formal validation procedure I'm going to walk you through that the Virginia Tech team has been honing and doing. So the first step actually, before you do the formal procedure, is to do a pre-validation and just make sure the equipment is working basically well. So Vahid and Tushar will go out and count and make sure that it's 10 people in each direction, in each mode, are correctly counted. Then if that works, we install the video camera at the counter, and we record 30 hours of trail use. We found we only need to process 15 hours of it, do the counts and of the users for 15 hours, and that's thanks to the work of Virginia Tech for figuring that out, that we don't need to do the full 30 hours. And we compare that to the video count, the human count to the device count, and see if they line up. And we're using an outside vendor to do the human counts rather than the students, because it's cheaper and faster. So here's an example from Wynwood Boulevard. Some of you have seen this one before. And ideally, in a perfect world, the automated counts, which are shown on the horizontal axis, would match up with the human counts shown on the vertical axis, and they would all be along this dotted line. But in this case, there was some variation, and they're not all lined up. So we thought, okay, well, it's not way off, but there could be some adjustment here. So we would like to see if we can make this better. And here's the site. It's a trail. We can see here that the infrared counter is pointing towards some woods, not towards a street. So that's good. It's probably not counting cars. It can count cars because it's looking for warm bodies. So we did a little more investigation and checked and saw that the bikes on the east lane were being counted twice, while the bikes on the west lane were not being counted as bikes, but counted as pedestrians. So this indicates that perhaps the equipment was not properly set up. So it's over-counting pedestrians by a large margin and under-counting bicyclists. So we worked with the vendor to figure out what might be going wrong with the setup, and found that the wires were just not properly set up. So we were able to go out and change how the wires were connected and get that corrected. And then we found much less error, and we could move forward with just using a correction factor to adjust for the known error. So if we had just looked at the data prior to validating it, we would have thought that the pedestrian volumes here were higher than the bicyclist volumes. But after the correction, because we know it's overcounting pedestrians now. But after the correction was made, that would have resulted in some bad decisions if we thought it was a pedestrian dominated site. We found that the pedestrian and bicycle volumes were actually about the same. So that gives us better information to make better decisions. So it's very important. We could not have known this just by looking at the data. We would only know this by going out in the field and doing this validation. So it's really important that we continue to do that and make sure the equipment's working. So the troubleshooting, and Sarah Belden is there. These are her slides. So Sarah does a daily check of the data just to look for any big signs of trouble for the National Park Service sites, not the whole 160 counters. She does follow-up visits, does monthly and quarterly visits, and we do also look at all of the counters quarterly to see how they're doing. Then we need to replace the batteries once a year or once every 2 years, and we can go out and do quick checks after if there's been any changes, this 15-minute check to make sure that the equipment is still working. So errors can arise from installation problems, as I mentioned. It's really advantageous to have someone who's familiar with the equipment on site during installation, so you can avoid some basic problems like the one we saw there on the Waynwood counter, or other common mistakes of pointing the infrared towards a road. So I hope that as we install more equipment, we make sure to have somebody familiar with it there before and after installation. And then a battery failure can be an issue, insect infestation, human-caused events like lawnmowers running over the post, and water damage is a big issue. So we have to do on-site maintenance, and these are some pictures Sarah took this summer of insect activity, clogging up our infrared, stickers being placed over our infrared lenses, and cocoons and spiders and all sorts of bug debris. So let's talk about the new counters we hope to install. We have the equipment. We're just trying to find the contractor right now to install these 7 new locations in the DC area. And we're also going to be repairing some other counters. One of the counters was installed with the post on the wrong side of the trail so that it pointed towards a road. So we'll be putting that on the other side of the trail, and the other 2 were just knocked down posts. So with that, I'm going to go to Vahid's work on data fusion, and you can ask him more about this. I'm just going to show one slide. So he's taking Strava data from the fitness app and combining it with the bike share data from Capital Bike Share, and also US Census data. It gives us basic information on sociodemographics, and combining all of that with the count data to estimate the traffic, bicycle and pedestrian trail traffic across a network. So we're excited to see how his work is going, and he's right in the midst of doing this. So thank you, Vahid, for your great work on this. So I'm now going to talk about the data dashboard. So we have a National Capital Region data dashboard that's managed by our colleagues at Portland State University, Tammy Lee and Bassem Elazabi, who are on the line. And you can see it goes through the entire capital region from the Maryland border down to Charles County. And I'm going to put let's see if I can find the link here that I can put in the, I was going to do a walkthrough. I'm not sure if we have time, but I'm going to put the link in the chat so those of you online can go and see it. So the dashboard for the region has a top 10 locations site. We see the Key Bridge coming up again and again on the pedestrian and the bicycle top volumes, but it also allows you to look at some of the other high volume sites there. And then we also have a way to indicate if there was an event that occurred, a snow event, a marathon, something like that. We can put that in the data, as well as our correction factors, so we can adjust the data for the known bias. A list of some of our annotations include construction near the site, maintenance on the hardware, some known malfunction, insects, etc., as well as our data correction factor. And then we have a QC feature that allows us to identify issues. Like here we see the a row of zeros, a run of zeros that the database has flagged, and we can select that as either valid, yes, there was a snowstorm, so no one was using the trail, or, oh, that might be a problem, and we want to select that as invalid. So we can then process the data with that knowledge. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, but can you see my browser?
No.
Yes, I can see it.
Uh,
Well, I can see your
can see your
mouse. I can see your mouse.
Okay. Can you see the bike ped portal data?
No, we're just seeing your slides still.
Oh, okay. Okay. I think I might have to stop sharing. So I'm going to stop sharing and try to show that screen. But while I do that, if anyone has questions, go ahead and ask while I try to move to that.
Could you share the link to the screen in the chat so we can access it?
I think I just shared if you go to the dashboard, did you see that in the chat? I did put that in the chat.
Yeah, I saw it pop up.
Okay, I think I can do this. All right. Can you now see my browser? Yeah. Okay. So this is our annotations, and you can see here this top red bar indicates the data correction. I can go here, I can turn the data correction off, or I can turn it on. So now the data I'm seeing here are corrected with the correction factor that we got from our validation. I can also see that there was an event in December, and I can click on that and go over here and see there was an event we believe happened on this particular day in December at this site. And then I can also go over here. I see there's another event, click on that. And Sarah Belden has gone in here and indicated that on January 19th, there was a snow event. So if I zoom in here to my data, I should be able, that would be in January, sorry. Go back. I can look at what happened there in January, and you can see there are a lot of zeros here, and this indicates that there was a snow event. So it's nice to have that documented in the data, and when it's downloaded, you would be able to see that. Another feature we have, do we have time, or should I just go to questions?
Is that the end of your presentation, or do you have more slides?
That's the end of the slides. That's the end of the slides. So if you have any questions about the portal, the dashboard here, or anything else, please let me know. And while I'm waiting for questions, I will just show you one more thing then if we want to go to, so I have an account. A lot of this is available, our basic dashboard is available without an account, but if you want the QC and annotation functions, you have to have an account. Talk to Tammy and Bassam to get one. So I can just go to QC here if I want to look at the quality checking and go to our region, the National Park Service National Capital Region, it zooms in. I choose District of Columbia because I want to look at this particular site at the Pierce Mill on the Rock Creek Trail. And then I can zoom in here and look at the data. So this is what the data look like. Nothing has been flagged here. But if I go to January of 2024, we will see that there are some zero runs where in January, we had some times when there were a lot of zeros because, it's January, not so many people are out walking. So I can choose that those are valid if I think, well, it was January and a lot of people didn't want to walk. Or if I think there is actually a problem, I could mark those as invalid. Okay, that's the last thing I wanted to show you. So I'll, any questions?
So if an agency installs a new permanent counter in our region, should they contact you and your team to see if it's eligible to get on the portal?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, we'd love to put more data up as if possible. We have to go through little permissions to get permission to do it and make sure that National Park Service wants us to do that.
Nice.
Hey, this is Griffin from NVTA. I'd be interested in seeing, so in particular, there's a NVTA funded project along the WOND Trail in the city of Falls Church where it was a single shared use path, I believe about 10 feet wide, but we funded for it to be essentially what it is now, a dual trail with separated cycle track with a 2-foot median and then a pedestrian way. I guess I'd be interested in seeing like the counts before the project was completed and then after because and I think it was completed in 2021. Not sure if the data goes back that far, but it would be interesting to see.
Yeah, so we can go to the Explore page here and I can go to region, National Capital Region. And if you go to the link, you should be able to do this as well. The link I put in the chat. And then we can zoom in to whatever area you're interested in. So here on the map, you can see these green dots indicate the automated counters and the orange dots indicate manual count data. So you could zoom into the location you're interested in, find the closest counter, and then look at the past data for that site. I invite you to do that and see if you can see that old data. We've got a lot in Arlington here. I am probably not going to choose the right one because I'm not as familiar with the area as all of you are. But you can see here, this particular one is on the WOND Trail, and it has data going back to 2012. And we also have these lines on the data here indicate the annual average daily traffic for that site. So this particular site, we have a lot of history, and it looks like there was some anomaly year that's kind of messing up our graph. But we have some, looks like kind of consistent data up through 2017. So you could look then at a particular year and see what was going on in that year on this site. So this might allow you to answer some of your question. If you can find a site that's appropriate.
Yeah, I'll play around with it. Yeah, it looks like there's definitely some counters, some automatic counters that are right where that dual path starts. So yeah, I appreciate the information.
Great.
Well, Charlene raised her hand. Oh, lowered your hand, raised your hand.
Yeah, sorry. I always forget to put it down, so I did that prematurely. Thanks. I've been involved in the regional meetings, the quarterly meetings for a while, and we're just trying here. I work at COG, and we're definitely interested in regional count data, as to create a regional picture and support a trends dashboard for us. So I got a bunch of thoughts and a few questions. So the value added when you document all these validation and the events, do you give that data back to the jurisdictions, or I guess more largely, do you have a sense of how your presenting of the data in your dashboard compares to other jurisdictions that may report their own data? How consistent is it? Should it be consistent? And maybe this is more of a question for the jurisdictions too. Is this something that they use as their source? Because we're kind of struggling with how to go about doing this on ours. And I know this committee has heard from us from time to time about that. So I just want to get a sense of because I want to have a consistent product, and I'm just trying to figure out where we go for the count data and how similar it is as far as sharing it.
So I'm glad that we have, thank you for the question. That's a really good question. And I'm glad that we have Tammy and Bassem on the line so they can correct me when I misspeak on this, but I'm going to attempt to answer it. The way it works is we have an API from EcoCounter. A lot of these data, not all of the data, we have also other vendors' data, but a lot of them are from EcoCounter, and they have a way for us to pipe the data straight from their database to ours, and that happens every night. There's a data download, and hopefully it gets the right data. It goes to Bike Ped Portal. Now, if there are changes to the data that are made in EcoCounter after that, we may not get those changes unless we re-import the data. So Tammy and Bassem, you can correct me if I'm wrong about that. So that can lead to, some differences. But if we know that there have been changes made, we can re-import the data to make sure that whatever is in EcoVisio, which is where the raw data comes in, is reflected here. Now, in the past, EcoCounter has not had a way for us to know if they made, sometimes they do interpolations of the data. They have methods for filling in gaps, and we did not know if those gap filling data were raw or extrapolated. So now they're coming out with a new version of the API that should indicate to us which are raw and which are filled in. So we look forward to that, and that can be another reason why what you may see in your EcoVisio isn't matching what we may have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I guess I was more, and this is probably a question more for the jurisdictions that we can explore at a later time. Do jurisdictions want to see their data presented with all of your bells and whistles as far as the events and all of that, good stuff that you add, or are they mostly ingesting the APIs? Because I mean, that's kind of what we've done in the past, and our staff has done some pretty good data correction on some of our data, but just going forward, I'm just trying to figure out what are the best sources. And I have downloaded some of your data, but you can't download a lot of it at once, so it's too cumbersome to download little pieces of it at all. So I'm definitely interested in if you have a mass data download or two, but that's all I'll say for now. So thanks.
No, these are great questions. And Tammy, can you answer? Or Bassem?
I think we have to move on to
Yeah, sure.
Okay, if you can type something in the chat, that would be great.
Yeah, that would be. Thank you. Very interesting. And I think we've all learned a lot throughout the process of NPS project on maintenance and management of those counters, which leads us into VDOT's efforts on the 66 parallel trail in Fairfax County. Brian Leckie, our district bicycle pedestrian coordinator, is going to present on our automated trail count program along the 66 trail. Should be an Adobe.
Where we go? Which way do we go?
There it is, item 5.
Yep.
All right, hopefully those slides are presenting to everyone online.
Shared, yeah.
Oh, it's not shared yet. Okay, there we go. All right, take it away, Brian.
Okay, thanks everybody. Good afternoon. I'll be presenting on some of the data that we have received.
Is the volume okay for those online?
Everybody hear me over there?
It is. Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
Sounds good.
All right, any comments on how the audio is now? Much better.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't want to curse it, but we can hear you again now.
All right, good job, Heidi. All right, should I start over or just keep going from there?
Please start over.
Please start over? Okay. All right. So very quickly, we have 8 eco counters that were installed along the 66 parallel trail between Route 20 Braddock Road in the west and Gallows Road in the east, which is close to the Capitol Beltway. They were installed by the Transform 66 Express Lanes project that also built the parallel trail. These counters are urban multi-style counters. Urban meaning it has a metal post as opposed to a wooden frame, and multi-style meaning that includes both bike and ped counters in the same apparatus. So the way they work is that the bikes are counted using induction loop technology that's placed in the pavement, detects the metal in the wheels when the bike passes over the counter. Meanwhile, the pedestrians are counted using a sensor that's located on the pole. The graphic in the center shows kind of how the setup works, except that our sensor will be placed facing the shared use path, as all of our counters are installed along the shared use path. The photo on the right shows our counter at Virginia Center Boulevard near Vienna Metro. So that's just kind of how it looks. Here's a map of the corridor that shows where the counters are installed along the 66 parallel trail. These counters over here by Merrifield that are just off the trail, those aren't part of it. It's kind of an optical illusion here, but all of our counters are on the northbound side of 66 there. And I wanted to do a brief demonstration of that link there. So let me do that to Microsoft Edge, and there we go. It's better. Okay, so this is our statewide active transportation count network in Virginia. This dashboard includes counters from other agencies in addition to VDOTs, but it also has some temporary counts in addition to permanent ones. So I'll zoom in here on the 66 parallel trail. As you can see, it goes from 20 to the Capitol, to near the Capitol Beltway. The bike counts are actually pretty consistently good along the whole corridor. There's a lot of usage, except kind of on the west end near Route 28. The bike counts are a little over there. The ped counts that we've seen are generally lower toward either end of the corridor. Generally, the ped counts show there's more activity going on in the middle of the corridor. Also, I wanted to point out you can look at both ped data and bike data simultaneously or separately, but if you zoom in and you toggle one of these, the whole thing will restart and take you back to the original screen. It'll take a while to load, so just note that. So let me just click on the Virginia, I believe it's the Virginia Center Boulevard counter. Now it's one of our highest performing counters. You can see all the data going back to when the counter was originally installed back in mid-2023. You can parse it out by daily counts, weekly, or monthly counts. As we can see in June for this counter, we had 4,088 combined bikes and peds that were counted in June. And also you can see all the activity for the last 30 days as well. And just note when you're looking at monthly counts, it goes by day, month, and year, because it's a French company, so it's kind of opposite. I also wanted to point out that the Yownish Drive and the Gallows Road counters, they actually have kind of a large discrepancy in the bike ped counts, because the bike counts at these locations are averaging over 1,500, but the pedestrian counts are averaging under 800, which for the Gallows Road one is kind of surprising me because that's a really urban area around there in Merrifield. Just wanted to note that. And you can also Google, if you type into Google Virginia Eco Counters, that bring the first item that comes up is this portal underneath there. So let me go back to the slides. Okay. There we go. All right, and just wanted to share a couple of statistics. Right now, we only have had consistent data since for May through August because we just went out and replaced the batteries in April. So we don't have a lot of data before that, but you'll see that a little more on the next slide. So between May and August, we've had the combined bike ped counts for the month per counter is about 2,855. That's broken down into 1,623 a month per counter for bikes and 1,232 for pedestrians. And our highest activity has been consistently found at the Virginia Center Boulevard counter near Vienna Metro, which I just mentioned have 4,088 combined bicycles, pedestrians in June 2024. So the data is almost always undergoing QA/QC, and keep in mind that this is planning level data and not necessarily meant to be taken verbatim, but it gives a pretty good overall picture of multimodal usage. We partner with TPB staff for technical assistance through their UPWP, which builds upon our existing active transportation data collection efforts with them. So thank you, Martha and Yugao, who are in the room here, for all the work that you do on that. And we work with them on the QA/QC process to clean up some of the data and address any sharp spikes that deviate from the norm that may be caused by spiders, bugs, weeds, insects, and the like. And as I said, we just recently replaced the batteries at each counter in April so that they can keep transmitting the data. Periodically, if there are several instances of peculiar data spikes, Martha and you will go out to inspect the counters to make sure that nothing is blocking it and clear off any debris or insect webs that are in or around the counters that might affect counter performance. And if you happen to be using the trail and happen to walk by one of our counters, you're more than welcome to check the sensors for any debris and feel free to move any obstructions that might be impeding the counters, as that would be very helpful. We also worked with EcoCounter to renew our service this past spring so that we can keep getting the data. And since that battery replacement in April, the data looks to be pretty accurate and consistent overall. Occasionally we'll get a spike here and there, such as 3,000 pedestrians on a single weekday morning, but we're investigating those in normal days to see what may have caused it. Interestingly, our Virginia Center Boulevard counter, which is overall the highest performing one, doesn't have any data spikes at all. So that data seems to be pretty reliable there. And I did want to highlight this counter, this graphic from our Route 50 interchange near Fairfax Farms Road counter, which gives a pretty good overall picture of how the data looks and also maybe some of the QA/QC challenges. You can see it was installed back in September, October 2023, and then has some gaps in the data. Again, that may have been caused by some of the battery issues, which ever since April, we have gotten consistent data. EcoCounter did tell me that they will begin reconstructing some of the missing data for all of our counters due to those issues in October. So looking forward to seeing what comes out of that. And as you can see here at this counter, there's always been several data spikes in July and August. So we have been working on QCing that data as well. So that's all I had. Any questions from
Take one question, quick question.
None in the room? Any online? Good.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Brian. Next up, we have Ryan Yowell with Metro. He is the senior planner in the Office of Planning and Sustainability, who will be briefing us on Wabata's new ped shed and the bike shed resources, which visualize the areas around metro stations that are accessible to pedestrians and cyclists.
Hi, this is Tiffany Jennings. Actually, I do have a quick question. I was just curious how much would one of these counters cost to install, purchase and install? I'm just curious.
Counters, but someone else may have an answer that they If anybody has an answer for Tiffany, please let her know in the chat or over email. But if we come across anything, we can let you know.
I'm gonna try going full screen here. Let's see. All right, folks on the call, let us know if that's looking weird to you on your end, but I'm just gonna have the presentation full screen here. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan Yowell. I joined Metro back in February as a senior planner, focusing in bicycle and pedestrian access to our Metro rail stations. We're running a little bit late, so I'm going to fly through these slides. Let's see here. So today I will be talking about the new tool that actually just debuted today, our new bicycle and pedestrian Atlas 2.0. And so I'll give a little bit of background on this project, go through the methodology. We don't have time for a demo, but I will show a couple of examples of from the tool, and then finally link you to those resources. So why Atlas 2.0? Whenever you talk to any Metro employee, we always have to bring it back up to our strategic transformation plan. That plan outlines our priorities and strategies. And one of the strategies outlined in that plan is to just make it easier and safer for folks to walk and bike to our Metro rail station. And the metric of success that we're working towards is to increase the share of riders who access our stations by bike to 3.5% by 2030. So we have a ways to go. Because right now we're at 1.4% there. And so this Atlas 2.0 is really helpful in us reaching that goal, and that it's just part of the puzzle for existing conditions for access to our stations. So a quick overview of some of the differences that we see across our system. The good news is that system-wide, already 2/3 of riders reach Metro by walking. So that's great. We see at stations like Clarendon, 80% of riders reach the station by walking. But then on the other end, you see stations like Southern Avenue that have about 1 out of 10 pedestrians or folks who reach the station by walking there. And I'll note that the Southern Avenue station is identified as a transit access focus area through TPB. Biking, we also see some discrepancies here station to station. And so College Park has some of our highest ridership for bicycles and scooters. That's about 1 out of 10 riders access the station that way. At stations like Shady Grove, we see under 1%, and Shady Grove is not, an outlier here. We have a lot of stations, especially inner ring suburbs and stations towards the end of the line where we have a very low share of folks who bike or scooter or use micromobility to reach the station. So, of course, there are lots of factors that determine or influence ridership, including fare costs, demographics, things like that. For the purposes of the Atlas, though, we're interested in physical barriers, things like highways, disjointed street networks, and also traffic stress. We heard a little bit about traffic stress earlier from Brian Shelton. And of course, if you're not familiar, we have this graphic on the right here that we took from Maryland's statewide bicycle and pedestrian plan that outlines just the different tolerances that different riders have for biking here. And we'll come back to the level of traffic stress later on in this presentation. So bike sheds and ped sheds, if you're not familiar, basically allow us to visualize those areas around points, in our case, Metro rail stations, that are accessible to pedestrians, bicyclists, and micromobility users. They're different than a simple like half-mile or 3-mile circle buffer that you would see around that station, because they actually take into account barriers in the transportation network. So this is the first time Metro has been looking at ped sheds. Back about 10 years ago, we released the Atlas 1.0. And then about 4 or 5 years later, TPB also released updated ped sheds. So between Metro and COG, we're kind of at a 4 or 5 year pace of updating our ped sheds as we go along. So what's new in version 2.0? Very excited to include bike sheds as part of this project. And so we also break those out by low stress and total networks. And then we present all of this in a story map, an interactive web map, and an updated PDF report. And I'll have a link to this at the end of the presentation. I'll quickly go through the methodology here. For ped sheds and bike sheds, we use publicly available information. To build the ped shed network, we just gathered sidewalk data from jurisdictions. And then for bike sheds in DC and Maryland, where we had statewide street level of traffic stress metrics, we use that to build a bicycle network. For bike sheds in Virginia, where we didn't have that statewide data readily available, we used a proxy that incorporated basically the roadway classification and then speed limit. So the idea that neighborhood roads with lower traffic speeds are going to be less stressful for bicyclists. Arterial roads with higher speeds are going to be more stressful for bicyclists. The next step was basically just to clean and manually review that network. So making sure that between jurisdictions that those points are lining up to create full networks. And then the third step, running the network analysis through ArcGIS Pro. So for ped sheds, we use that half-mile distance from a station. And then for bike sheds, again, we broke that out into low stress and total. So for low stress networks, we included level of traffic stress designations up through number 3, which includes basically dedicated bicycle facilities on a road. In Virginia, that proxy that we used is basically roads with speed limits up to 30 miles per hour. And we'll talk a little bit later about why that's not perfect, but for now, we're using that as our proxy. And then for total networks, we basically included all on-road facilities that could feasibly and legally accommodate bicycle traffic. Finally, we described the characteristics of that shed. So in the resources that you'll see, that you'll be linked to, we describe the ped shed size, households, jobs, as well as ridership that's at that station. I do want to be upfront about some of the methodology limitations, especially for bike sheds. And we know that the proxy that we use in Virginia is going to include roads that probably are considered low stress, while also excluding roads that are would be considered low stress. And then for this initial data set, because we were looking at on-road level of traffic stress, we don't include facilities like multi-use trails at this time, but we're really excited for future iterations to build off of this sort of base bike shed that we've developed and include those facilities. And then, of course, across all 98 stations, we're probably missing like that one connection that you're really familiar with because you're there at that station every day and we just didn't pick it up in our data source or through satellite review. So a couple examples here. Here are the PDFs that you'll have access to now. And so again, you'll see the left side right there, I believe is the ped shed, right side is the bike shed. So you can see the different gradients there designate the low shed or low stress bike shed and the total bike shed on the right there. Really excited to have a story map that I think pretty clearly describes what are ped sheds and why are they important, what are bike sheds, how do they differ between low stress and high stress. And so that's really geared towards the public. And then for everybody here and everybody on the call who wants to dive in and to the data a little bit more, the web map on the right side allows you to filter to specific stations. You can also download data in a table form and download the shapefiles that we have here for your own independent analysis. And what I think is really cool here, we're just starting to use this data a little bit for our own initial analysis internal to Metro. So this graph that you see on the right shows the relationship between the station's ped shed size and the share of pedestrians who access that station. And the data lab team at Metro would scream at me if I didn't mention that correlation does not equal causation. There are other factors at play here, but I do think it's a pretty cool relationship to see that as you build out a ped shed, as you add more facilities that allow people to walk to the stations, we can generally expect, based on the data that we're seeing here, that pedestrian mode of access share will increase as well. So here's that link. It's a pretty long link, and I'm not sure I can copy it into the chat right now, but if you just go to wamata.com/initiatives and navigate to the open data hub there, you'll see bike sheds and ped sheds right there. So all of this is ready for your review today. And I'm really excited to continue the conversation with everybody here and see what you are able to do with this new data. So thank you.
Question.
Yeah.
Would you use the pack of improvement that you're making?
Yeah, so we're already doing internally scenario planning for different stations. If we were to add, a new entrance to a station that maybe only has one entrance on one side of the station area, what would that mean if we were to add a new passageway? And we're looking at things like that, especially for stations that have really small ped sheds right now and really poor pedestrian connectivity. So things like Southern Avenue, what would change if we added, a new trail through Oxen Run there, just as a hypothetical. So yeah, we're starting to do that already with this data. It's pretty fun stuff.
So next we'll go on to Mike Farrell and other COG TPD staff for program updates. Mike, can I ask that since the micromobility workshop and curbside management forum have probably.
I'll be quick, yeah.
Yeah, prioritize the other.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we'll distribute more information on those two soon. The Street Smart is, again, very quickly, our Life Ahead creative is going to be, we're excited about it. We think it's going to be good. We're going to probably unroll it at a press event at the Naylor Road Metro Station. Final date is still to be announced. So that's it.
Well, I think Janie had an announcement about the safety. Thank you, Janie. So October 31st. And just to underscore what Mike said about Street Smart, the Life Ahead is a brand new campaign creative. The Shattered Lives will be retired eventually, and Life Ahead will be brand new creative, and we will need everybody's support to help promote those safety messages and work with their transit partners and others to get those messages and creative, I guess there are little billboards and things up on really anywhere you can post them, internal bulletin boards. I know the transit systems are coordinated with separately to get the ads up on buses, but I think Life Ahead will be kind of a new theme. It's a little more happy and will bring smiles to people's faces in the region, hopefully. So more on that. So next up, we have a special presentation from a company called Cidian. Michael Glassman and I guess Dan Moore will be presenting on their ADAPT tool, which stands for Accessibility Design Assessment and Planning Tool, which is an ADA planning and non-motorized infrastructure mapping tool. Looks like it looks like you're sharing that the bar went to the right-hand top corner.
Sure.
It looks like, can those online see the PowerPoint with the blue swoosh?
No, we see the wamata.com initiatives, the last. That's what I see. Mhm.
So over here, it went over here. So if you click this button on the top here, or something else, and
That's
then,
better.
and then hit there.
Yeah, okay, got it.
You can see it now. Mhm.
Is that any better? Okay, so I think you have to really.
It's also can carry. Try to do that clearly. Yeah, we can get rolling into this. I know we're already scheduled, so I'll try and get the data as quick as possible here. So the agenda for today, we're going to start out with just some introductions on the space we occupy and why we exist as a company, some background on ADAG and PRODAG, which is probably very familiar with. Go over a lot. They get into some of the data collection methodologies. Is that any better? You guys hear me? Okay. I'm going to try and get as close to the speaker as I can. I don't know what other.
That's much better. We can hear you.
Cool. It's probably a me issue here with my computer. Zoom forward. So close. Okay, so some background on who we are at City. And so we're a software company. We're made up of professional engineers in transportation, professional researchers, shout out Ian, and then software developers. Of course, we're a software company. So we create different solutions that focus on how we can make our community safer, more equitable, and more accessible. So a lot of the folks at Cidian have built their careers working within local transportation agencies, very familiar with the challenges of our industry firsthand, limited budgets, limited personnel, and limited data to be able to inform some of those investments. So we decided to design some solutions specifically tailored for engineers and planners to make decision-making as simple and as streamlined as possible as it relates to accessibility in this space. So we have a couple different tools. We're going to focus on one software today called Adapt, the accessibility design and ADA planning tool. So quick historical context, just to kind of anchor the conversation today. 1973, the U.S. Access Board was created, followed by 17 years later, the ADA was signed into law in 1990.
A year later, the accessibility guidelines for ADA or ADAG, right, came into place. And just recently, fast forward to about this time last year, the U.S. Access Board actually issued final standards with accessibility guidelines for pedestrian facilities in that public right-of-way, or what we'll call kind of PROAG for this. Now, why focus on sort of the page here? So I guess getting into PROAG, right? So the public right-of-way accessibility guidelines, they are the minimum guidelines for accessibility for all of those pedestrian facilities. So we're talking like the sidewalks and the bus stops, curb ramps, APS push buttons, right? All of this now needs to be not only brought into compliance, but with the latest PROAG standards, all of the inventories that are newly constructed in your network now need to tie back into your compliant infrastructure. So knowing what you have and where it is, what's compliant and what's not, is very important in making sure that we're compliant with the latest PROAG standards here that are coming about. So why focus on ADA? Obviously, legalities is a huge thing, right? Making sure that, you know, we protect the actual liability that's associated with managing these assets, right? Litigation happens all the time. States, cities, counties, MPOs can cost millions of dollars in damages, tens of millions of dollars in budgets being tied up for really hitting some of those pressing needs that have come about in your community. Beyond just the policy side of things, right, there's a host of different reasons why we want to focus on our non-motorized network, as I'm sure many people here today are very familiar with, right? Everything from actually the folks with a disability, mobility disability, all the way to kind of focusing on these assets, what it can do for our communities as it relates to the cost of paratransit, right? Any sort of greenhouse gas emissions. And then beyond that, universal design, right? Kind of ADA-DAG and PROAG sort of fulfill the universal design principles of making these needed modifications, improves the quality of life for all individuals in your community, kind of regardless of their disability status. Now, coming up next week, the NPRM for those latest PROAG standards is actually going to conclude on Monday, the 23rd, meaning these minimum thresholds are then going to be adopted and for enforcement by the US DOT as well as the DOJ. Now, where do we start with all of this, right? The place to start is the federal standard of your ADA transition plan. Now, at a high level, the ADA transition plan has 4 parts, right? Identify the obstacles that limit accessibility, essentially building out these inventories in your network. Second would be creating a plan that prioritizes your network for the highest degrees of non-compliance, focusing on both those short-term and those long-term goals. Third, develop a schedule, right, to actually make those needed modifications. And then lastly, identify the individuals responsible for implementing that specific plan. Now, understanding what you have, what's compliant, what's not, how to best bring it into compliance, and then actually tracking and reporting on that work to reach modern ADA compliance, it's a lot, right? It's a tall order. And we're going to run through sort of the industry standard best practices here that can make that vision tenable, if you will. So what we're looking at here in terms of sort of that first step, right, building out those inventories, there's a variety of different ways to do that. And historically, right, the industry has built out those, I guess, right-of-way inventories with that manual boots on the ground approach, right, going out there and taking those measurements of the cross slopes, running slopes, and so on. The other side of that spectrum is the much more kind of automated and semi-autonomous approach, leaning on technologies like, say, LiDAR, terrestrial or aerial LiDAR, to be able to streamline not only the efficiency of building out these inventories, but the efficacy of building out those inventories. Now, what I have listed here are a few different ways that we've gone about building out those inventories with different jurisdictions and kind of the pros and cons of each one. But this is broken down by each one of these methodologies, accuracy, ease of actually performing it, the cost and time savings, and then the environmental impact of performing that actual collection. Now, in terms of building out these inventories, we've highlighted that band there for the LiDAR data collection. It's come a long way in the last 3 or so-ish years, right? Pairing this technology with the latest in artificial intelligence can really multiply the efforts of building out these inventories, takes significantly less time, costs significantly less money, and ultimately delivers a standardized approach to kind of that data set, right? Now, if we pop down into sort of what this approach would look like in action, I have a really high level case study highlighted here. We don't have to dive into the weeds of it. When we're looking at trying to take some of this information and streamline everything from building out those inventories or collecting those inventories, extracting that information, layering that into GIS with several different supplementary data sets, and then getting into sort of the programming side of things. It can all be done at a significant time and cost savings, and ultimately deliver everything from automatic generated maps or accessibility isochrones, right? We're looking at different ways to look at compliance across a broader network or scaled down on different localized places in your communities there. Now, starting out with that first step, right, the data collection here. So what we're looking at here on the top left is actually one of those kind of tremble units or rigs would look like to collect that data. Over the course of a couple of weeks, we would drive through your communities using this terrestrial LiDAR to build out these inventories in a very dense cloud, which you can kind of see in the bottom left and the top right there. Now, concurrently with that LiDAR rig spinning and these point clouds being developed, we're also concurrently collecting 360-degree photogrammetry, right, to layer on top of that point cloud. So what you're looking at here is an example of not only the equipment, but also sort of the two outputs, the point cloud and the photogrammetry, right? This really dense point cloud that we kind of stitch together with this photogrammetry then makes the following step, the data extraction, much more, I guess, simple and much more streamlined, if you will. Like this actual data extraction, it's easier than ever before with this technology and with this approach. So taking that LiDAR point cloud, which is that first, I guess, image there, layering in that 360-degree photogrammetry gives us the ability to extract that information and develop a very robust and detailed inventory of every one of your pedestrian assets that would meet the requirements of the latest PROAG standards here. Things like the running slope, the cross slope, what's the width and the length of certain assets, and so on. Now, beyond just the public right-of-way and the pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure assets, right? Anything that would be captured in that LiDAR point cloud, everything that would be captured in that photogrammetry, we can extract that information as well. So we're talking about things like signage, pavement markings, anything all the way down to bollards or traffic signals, right? There's really a host of different ways that we can, or different assets that we can bring into the system. But the artificial intelligence that we're using here, it's kind of machine vision and image recognition, is working with these inputs from the LiDAR. And we're looking at kind of the combination of all of the different types of assets that we can pull out and then populate into a system like ADAPT. Now, moving on to that prioritization of the pedestrian improvements, right? We have all this information, we understand it in a very granular fashion, but now once we have these detailed information, right, each one of these individual assets, as well as the network as a whole, can be prioritized, right? We can do this generally by focusing on not only the degree of compliance, but also the degree of liability risk, right? Think land use, demographics, or any sort of local or federal accessibility requirements, like say PROAG. Now, understanding exactly is what is driving that non-compliance makes understanding the needed remedial steps, right, automatic, right? Understanding priorities for these upgrades through realistic and accurate construction cost estimates has never been this easy to be able to do at whatever customized geography you'd like to focus on, whether it's a walk shed or a certain area going down a corridor or a bus route. But you can instantly ask any questions and get sort of that automated detailed analysis with the system. Now, beyond that, we can also take a look at sort of the broader level programming, right? Planners and engineers can make data-driven decisions on the fly, right? As new data becomes available, we want to be able to use that, take that consideration into whatever it is that we're focusing on. Now, speaking of programming, I know we touched on a little bit about walk and bike shed analysis around different transit stops, but consider any geography, right? Including high injury networks, right? Maybe you want to look at school zones or bus routes, right? Being able to program around this information with cost estimates, streamlining procurement and different grant applications, building out dashboards to keep a record of your performance internally, and then also being able to take that information and, as needed, flip it to be public facing for your communities. Now, to kind of review just like an overview of that sort of workflow, right? The life cycle of infrastructure, it's quite dynamic, but the management of that infrastructure can be quite cyclical, right? Building out your inventories, prioritizing the needed upgrades, programming the implementation, and then bringing that new infrastructure inventory back into your overall management process to inform your program moving forward, right? The goal of the system is to make the inventorying, prioritizing, and executing those accessibility upgrades as efficient as possible, right? Leaning on the latest technology in terms of LiDAR and AI and the engineering know-how that we bring to the table makes this complex task much, much more simple and streamlined than previously thought. Now, I know I kind of rushed through a little bit of this today. I know we're already a little bit over time here, but I want to at least offer questions if anyone has any, and then I'll flash to the last slide for my contact information to maybe have a broader conversation with any folks that would be interested. That's all. Yours. Any questions?
What states have you worked with or worked in?
Great question. So we've worked with the District of Columbia. We actually just wrapped up a pilot with Minnesota's Department of Transportation. We're doing a couple pilots out in California with the DOT as well as, I believe, some other district offices. And then also with LA County. And then there's a sort of a little bit more nuanced of a pilot that we're doing with LA Metro as well. So kind of have our hand in a lot of places across the country, kind of full states all the way down to smaller communities. And we just did a build out for Helena, Montana. So going through that similar process to build out these really granular inventories and then kind of layer in how they can program. Any other questions?
I guess I would just say that we're, here at COG, we're always looking for ways. Sorry, we're always looking for ways to inventory existing facilities, because what we get in terms of just gathering data tends to be not consistent or always completely accurate and not the same age. So we've been looking at other possibilities, things using analysis of aerial photography to help us spot, well, where are our bike trails? We do aerial photography, you could get a picture of the whole region. It's like, so how far along is our National Capital Trail network? Well, we have different aerial photographs taken at interval of some set years. That corresponds pretty well with a lot of the things, the kind of like high level evaluation that we do of like our goals and what progress are we making towards meeting our goals. Are we building out this planned network of of shared use paths that we're supposed to be building, and things like that. This today is a little, it's much more fine grained. It's more like how can we tell what is not ADA compliant or what is no longer adequately maintained, and then so we know what we need to go out and fix. It's a different set of needs, but it's also, I think, compatible with what we do. And I think they did roll out a price tag for us, and we thought, that's a little bit more than we want to pay or that we have in our budget. So I'm really thinking that this, I think the ADA angle is a good one because of the legal exposure and the pressure that there is to make sure that things are compliant. So and also when you're talking about people who actually build stuff and pour concrete as opposed to, set regional goals, pretty soon you're talking about real money. So I was thinking that this might be a good audience for it because the concrete pouring people, and you know what kind of money is being spent, and maybe a product like maybe these kinds of products could help you out or possibly be affordable in a sense for that kind of an agency.
Anything in the chat?
Let's see. And then one thing I could add to that, Mike, is the idea of going through this is sort of like demonstrating the art of the possible. Like this can be done, but we need folks where they're at. So if you wanted to do understanding kind of where your bike infrastructure was with say aerial LiDAR, right? It's all about sort of what your use case would be, what your output's looking to be, but trying to make it as automated as possible. because the manual effort of doing some of these inventories and then being able to kind of maintain that over time, it's
That was
Right.
clicked the three button, the three dots. Uh,
Yeah, I'm just trying to expand it and be able to see what I have.
so try that again, and then the second option at the top. Second. At the top.
Yeah, more panels.
Right above more panels.
Chat?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
So no questions in the chat, but we got Daniel's email address for those that have any other questions. We can probably move on to any other business or announcements. Anything from those in the room or online? I don't know if you guys can hear me, but any other final business? Hearing none, the next meeting is November 19th. It will be virtual. And we will look forward to meeting again. Final 2024 meeting.
All right, very good.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Oh, that's awesome.
The